And when you they're normally a gallon, yeah. The fairly big ones, yeah. Yeah. So it's 1 tablespoon of sugar to 1 gallon of water there. The other thing, there are 2 things to remember when you're transplanting. Don't laugh at me. One is to put oats in the bottom of your little hole that you're transplanting into. Oats has a lot of trace elements in it, and it helps for to help the plants to grow. And the other is if you're planting pole beans especially, I said this last week I think, put a little bit of hair or dog fur in the bottom. Because again, hair or dog fur. Yeah, dog fur. Yeah, I've got a big fluffy white dog, and boy, she gets scraped out when I'm about to plant my pole beans.
What about cat fur?
Well, I should think any fur, but I've only ever used dog fur because we don't have cats, because my dogs won't allow cats anywhere near us. But they, again, your own hair actually has a lot of trace elements. Trace elements go into the hair, including arsenic. So if anybody thinks of poisoning their other half with arsenic, watch out, because they'll get you. Because they'll take a hair sample and they'll, yeah. So I don't write who done. I don't.
None of his balls. Husband's not bald.
I don't write who done it's on the side, but I did hear that somewhere. Okay, so make a dish around your plants so that they're actually in a slightly dish position, so that you can actually put your water literally into that dish rather than planting covering the whole area with water, because it's, you know, you guys are having to pay for water. I don't. I pay for having to replace my pump and my well somewhere along the line. But if you're paying for water, don't waste it. Drip lines are wonderful. That's the little thin plastic coated hose that's flat, and then it just literally has a whole lot of little holes in the sides, and it just drips constantly. But they are quite expensive, so, you know, it depends on whether you're prepared to pay for it or not. Sprinklers, you're losing an awful lot of moisture, because a lot of it actually evaporates when you're using a sprinkler. So it's better to go around, if you've got the time, with a hose and a watering can, and literally fill up your watering can, stop the hose, you know, put one of those stoppers on the end of it, and then you can measure how much each of your plants is going to get. Depends on what size you're growing. You know, if I did that, it would take me all day. But anyway, it's better than using a sprinkler in many ways. Sprinklers also, especially in humid conditions, which we get round about the end of July, beginning of August, will cause more of the powdery and the downy mildews, because you're getting a lot of water on the leaves, and you don't want water on the leaves when it's humid, because it stays on the leaves and the fungal infections get in and start causing all sorts of problems. And it's best not to wet leaves. So if you're actually using your watering can, try to go to the root direct rather than spraying the top of the plant. Weeding. Yes, weeding. Yes. So, your wading regimen is, before planting, as soon as the soil can be worked. Well, as I say, I'm working my peat moss soil, not my other soil there. 1 day before planting, just go through your bed quickly and just see if there are any more that have come up. 10 days after planting, 10 days after that, so 20 days after planting, thereafter as and when needed. So that by the time that your plants are 20 days in the ground, outside, they shouldn't be badly affected by weeds, generally. Onions are affected by weeds. So try and keep your onion patch as clear as possible. So use the non-seeded weeds, in other words, the dandelions before they go to, the picture's gone, but before they go to seed, you can always put those in your compost. But once they've gone to seed, just be careful. If you're going to put them in your compost, you've got to have really hot compost to kill the weeds. Weeding. Hoeing. How many people use a Dutch hoe? Yay! Yes! Marvellous piece of equipment. Yeah. The little hose with the blade, and you just pull it. Yeah. Yeah. Those are wonderful because they're so quick. And they will cut off. If you've got, and don't forget to sharpen the blade regularly, because they will cut off just under the soil. They'll cut off the top from the root. The top you can take away, the root will break down. Brilliant. Hand weeding, deadly job, but necessary. Rototilling for weeding, no. What you're doing there is you're actually plating your soil, for one. And two, if you've got something like quackgrass or what's it called, lamb's quarters or dandelion, if you're going to cut that up with a rototiller, it's just going to make the problem worse. So it's probably not good to rototill for weeding purposes, unless you absolutely have to, and you really can't face bending over. Get a kneading pad, they're wonderful. So beware of leaving the roots behind, if it's one of those ones that's going to spread by root. Beware of tilling and cutting up the roots and shoots. And the other way of getting rid of weeds is actually by laying plastic between your rows. But the trouble with plastic is, although it kills the weeds, it will quite often affect your plants that you want to keep because it overheats them. It overheats their roots. You're frying the roots effectively. So just be a little bit careful of using plastic. One way of getting rid of your weeds to start with, before you actually plant your plants out, is to put some clear plastic over your bed, put some rocks on to hold it down. It will bring all the weed seed up, and you can either take the weeds out, or if the sun is really shining well, it will kill those weed seeds that do come up. So that's one thing to do. Yeah? I use straw extensively, yeah, especially around potatoes, because I've got Colorado potato bean. No, straw, but watch out for hay.
Yes, no, just straw.
No, straw's probably pretty good, except the straw that I tend to use, it's got a lot of oats in it, so the oats starts growing, but you know, you can pull out oats pretty easily.
What about wet newspaper between rows?
Yeah, can be done. Yeah. It's not as bad as plastic, because plastic tends, especially black plastic, tends to overheat. But if you want to warm up your soil before planting, put some black plastic down.
I'm not sure if the difference between straw and hay.
Hay is normally a feed. It's fine, and it's a fine grass, whereas straw is the leavings after they've taken the heads off wheat or rye or barley, and it's sold as straw in a bale. Yeah, yeah.
So they don't really sell too many hay bales, especially
No, it's mostly straw. Just go into the shop and ask for straw. You're not going to go and feed rabbits on hay, or goats or cattle or whatever.
What about the bags of mulch that you can buy at the garden centres, like the red cedar mulch and all that?
Yep. The only problem with the bark mulches is that, again, they're acidic. And when they break down in the soil, you're going to have to lime again to bring your pH back up again.
Not recommended if lime.
Yeah. I have used it, but I use it normally more on my flower beds than I use it on my vegetable beds. Yeah. But, you know, it's expensive. That's the problem. Unless there was a time when, I think it was the Lions, had out, you know, with the Sunbury, they used to sell it by the truckful. Yeah. And that's the most effective way to buy it, is to actually borrow a half-ton truck off somebody and go and get a half-ton. Yeah, that's the only problem. And that's another problem with straw, is earwigs. Yeah. But they love bark mulch, yeah, I'm afraid. But earwigs also do kill certain of the bag bugs, so don't get rid of all of them. It's like ants. Ants are actually parasites.
The new stuff they won't go near it.
Yeah, but it's when it's, yeah, they love it. Yeah, absolutely. So mulching. This is where we're now talking about when you've planted your plants out, you don't want the weeds growing, you want to put something in between, and this is what we've already been talking about, putting in straw or putting in newspaper. Newspaper is not particularly attractive, so it's quite nice to put something over the top, like a bark mulch. It does stop weeds, and it keeps the soil moist. So if you don't want to have to water too much, put a mulch in. But it can stop growth, especially if it's a leaf mulch, especially if it's black wall mulch, right? And if you've planted small seeds and you mulch them too much, they're not going to be able to get up through whatever you've used. So be careful with that. Some of the bark mulches can cause funguses, they can cause mildews, they can cause things like verticillium wilt and certain of the rots, so be careful with them. Bugs, slugs and rodents. Slugs love mulch. I've got a slug problem already, would you believe? Dogs have taken a couple of bones outside, left them outside. Walk out yesterday morning and I look at these 2 bones lying there and I'm thinking, what's that? Slugs on the bones. Ugh. So, here we go. Slugs. If you don't want to buy beer to kill slugs, make your own mix, which is a teaspoon of yeast to a tablespoon of sugar to a litre of water.
Salt shaker.
Yeah, yeah, if you've got time. But that's going to cause problems in itself in the end, because you're going to make your soil too saline if you're not careful. Yeah, but so long as you get the actual slug rather than, you know.
Say that again.
It's actually in your notes. It's in the notes that you've got tonight. Yeah. So yeah, and you put that in. I use the 500 milliliter yogurt and tubs, and I put them into the ground a bit. The slugs go plop in. They drown. And they drown. They die happy because they think they're drinking beer. But yes. So slugs start if you do get slug problems. Start putting this out now. I'm going to do it over the weekend. You can mess up your pH if you're using mulches that are acidic, like your leaf mulch, some of your leaf molds, and some of your barks can change. And the other mulch that is good is strawberries love pine needles. If you've got pine needles, put them around your strawberries. Because they are acidic and strawberries like acidic, it actually enhances the flavor of your strawberries. So, you can use what's called planter's paper. You can buy it in rolls. It's about 20 foot long and about 2 feet wide to use as a mulch. And you lay it out and you literally make holes in it and you plant your plants through it. And it breaks down over the summer, but it is expensive. Newspaper is fine. Try not to use the very shiny plastic type flyers. I think most of the newspaper people have gone back to using what is called non-chemical inks. They're using more organic inks. But some of those very bright coloured inks are not particularly good for your soil.